The Carl Nelson Show.
And good morning, Wake Up Squad, and thanks for continuing to wake up with us. Later, Contra Costa College professor Manu Ampin will report to our classroom. Now, many of you know Professor Ampin as the man who discovered that the Willie Lynch letter was a fake. Well, later, Professor Ampin will explain why we have 365 days and 12 months in a year. Professor Ampin will share how our ancestors came up with those metrics. But before we hear from Professor Ampin, Central Florida journalist Jeff Gallup updates us on a string of suspicious killings in that area. But to get us started this morning, Baltimore multi-talented activist Kim Poole is here. Kim, good morning. Welcome to the program.
Good morning, Carl. How are you?
We're good. How about yourself?
I'm good. I'm preparing. You know, we have the State of the Black World Conference, Teaching Artists Institute. We're preparing for our Hip Hop Summit that's going to be taking place during that convening. So proud that it's happening in my city. We work around the world, Carl. You know, we're in 8 different countries, and it's nothing like when you get a chance to do the work that you're doing around the world at home in your own city. So we're going to be organizing the Hip Hop Summit. We have artists coming in as a part of the Ghanaian delegation with the Ghanaian president. So excited that he understands the importance of culture as a tool. We, in the Teaching Artists Institute, say that culture is the new currency. It's the old currency and the new currency, and they understand that in Ghana, which is why they're on the rise. And so we also have hip-hop artists coming in from the east coast of Africa. A lot of people don't realize that that's where hip-hop went. When the industry changed here in the U.S. and it became the tool of many of the multinational and 500 companies, the authenticity of the movement, it planted itself in East Africa. And so we have authentic African voices with Raz Benzema and beatboxer Scooter and Nati Mekube out of South Africa with the breakdancing and the G7 Nation and Nana Amoa. Just so many incredible folks. And then on the home front, Kareem Ali, local Thai fellow, been with the Teaching Artists Institute many years. Now he's coming back on, and he's going to be there too with Mully Man over in Baltimore. So it's an exciting time.
Good to hear that. You have the Summer Learning Institute coming up as well. Can you tell us about that?
Absolutely. So, of course, the work continues. Our Thai Studies and Cultural Exchange Program is our flagship opportunity underneath of that umbrella. It takes place in the Gambia and in Tanzania. Every year, this will be our 3rd year. You know, once your baby becomes 3, it has opinions. They know what they want to eat. They have attitude. And so I kind of feel that way as we walk into the 3rd edition of our Summer Learning Institute. And it's an opportunity not just for cultural immersion, which is paramount to development. Exposure is key to the ideas you have and the passion that you have and how you decide to implement them, the culture of who you are, your work ethic. Cultural immersion helps to shape that, but it's also legitimacy. If you want to build your portfolio, globalization, now it makes sense for everybody's profession, across sector, across industry. You have to think globally and act locally. And so the Summer Learning Institute is an opportunity for you to do that and now have the legitimacy to prove it. Lots of people are doing tours to Tanzania, to the Gambia. But while we're on the ground, we have MOUs. We've partnered with the local institutions that shape the symbolic landscape of these regions. We're no longer just a tour company, Carl. We're doing this work with Tsuba, Bagamoyo College of Arts and Culture. We do it with Ricomed, the Runway International College of Business and Entrepreneurship. And then we go into the north and we do this work with Macamira. And this university is one of the premier in Arusha in the northern regions of Tanzania. And so you get certification that you can come back to the United States and use as you see fit. If you were a college student, well, you would use it as a 3-credit course towards your matriculation through undergraduate or graduate studies. Nowhere in the world can you be certified and can we demonstrate your cross-cultural communication abilities and your expeditionary learning abilities as a result of participating in an initiative in, 14 days. But we are able to do that because we have developed best practices. If you are a counselor or an educator, well, it's important that you stay relevant in your industry. So you need every year to get recertified. And so our Summer Learning Institute could provide you with continuing education courses, those credits that you need to stay relevant in your industry. Or maybe you just need sabbatical as a professor that's been teaching day in and day out, semester after semester. Come and get that reprise with us because we, as cultural practitioners and our organization exploring the art of possibility, we make sure we integrate work-life balance. And so you'll get a chance to let your hair down. You'll meet the locals. Our organization and our curators, these are entities that we work with all year long. We're not just a tour company that goes into the area simply because we're doing a tour. We're building institutions that are sustainable for the rising, the global rising. Global Africans Rising is the movement that they call it. And so we're trying to be sustainable and build institutions, and we want to ensure that people know the reason that our entity is different now that Tanzania is popular, now that everybody wants to do tours there. It's like, cool, build the industry. We're glad that it's growing, but remember the difference. Understand the quality and people that have the longevity in the industry. The difference from when you travel with them and travel with us is because we're integrated into the grassroots and the grass tops. We're working with the institutions and we have partnerships and relationships with them. We're able to protect your interests. For example, with the Jawanzaa East African Investment Tour this October, when we go through Rwanda, Kenya, and Tanzania. I mean, we have an MOU with the Nandi County government. And so the Nandi County governor, he's the president of governors throughout Kenya. So it's just different when you come with us. And so it's the same in Tanzania. We're working with universities that we've taken time to nurture true relationships with. And so now it's time to draw the sand in the line. Do you just want a trip? Do you want to have fun? Or are you looking to build your resume? Are you looking to build your international speaking and performance portfolio? Well, come to the Summer Learning Institute and consider doing that with us.
All right, 8 after the top there. Kim Poole is our guest this morning. And Kim, what about Kiswahili? Do you guys offer any training, any coaching in speaking that language for the tour?
Absolutely. So it's important, Carl, I've mentioned before on the air that language is so very valuable to your perspective. There's a book called The Hegemony of the English Language. I have friends in Nigeria who were born and raised in Nigeria and have had children, and they don't teach their children Yoruba. They don't teach their children Igbo. And I asked myself, how could you do that? And they said, because I don't want my children to have an accent. I want them to learn to speak the English language in a way that prepares them to do business. And I said, do you understand that your success in business is going to be what makes you different from every other entity? You need an identity. Business is the value of values, like my sister with the Institution of Financial Unity would say. You have to understand what is of value. That's why we say culture is the new currency, because if you don't have an understanding of what is important, your business ventures will never truly be successful or fulfilling. And they definitely aren't holistic in community development. You'll be developing institutions that don't truly support your community. And it starts with language. So business in Tanzania and East Africa, many times that's fertile ground because those people understand their identity. And in Tanzania, absolutely, because an African language is their primary language. It's not their secondary language. It is the country's national language, Kiswahili. And so sometimes maybe you run into people that speak English. Many of them do. They're bilingual, trilingual. I mean, they speak many languages, but their first language is Swahili. In an attempt to unite many African languages within that region, Julius Nyerere, he did an incredible job of uniting his region, and he understood how to use language. And so we want you to be a part of the party. So we prepare you in 4 workshops prior to your departure, all free of charge, preparing you for what is needed on the ground in terms of that cultural immersion. And it includes lingual training. Of course, the best teacher is being on the ground. It's nothing that lingo or any of those language learning applications are going to teach you that you won't learn best while being on the ground, speaking with the people. So prep is good. It helps you manage expectations. But ultimately, you have to be immersed. That's what's going to give you the opportunity to learn a new language. And we focus on that. It's paramount. And so Tanzania, Kiswahili, you'll use that not only in Tanzania if you commit some extra time to really digging down, but you can use that in Kenya and really even in the Congo. It migrates into some of the central regions of Africa. You can use it in Burundi, right? Rwanda, maybe wherever you want to go in East Africa, somebody's going to be in the room that understands Swahili. But Tanzania is the Mecca. It's their primary language.
And having said that, at 12 after the top of the hour, Kim, you're talking to some folks now who probably have not left their city or haven't left their city in decades, and they're weary about travel. And what do you say to those folks who have not left their areas? They're listening to you right now, some laying in bed, some on the way to work. And it's always been in the back of their minds, but somehow they cannot make that connection to get a passport and just leave. There's some, trepidations about leaving America. They feel more secure living in the United States. What do you say to those folks?
I understand. I mean, what can you say? Wake up, everybody, no more sleeping in bed. Wake up. The world will move on without you. It's a whole world out here. And Africa is not just the cradle of civilization. It's not just the original man and the birthplace of the original woman. It is the last frontier. It is the future. Every nation around the world, every company around the world needs to understand the resource development happening in Africa. Everything from coltan in your cell phones in the Congo to rubber in your tires in Liberia to the youngest population around the world, the new workforce. And so understanding that, being a part of that is definitely something that you'll need for your sustainability. One day you'll look up in Baltimore and you will be a stranger in your own city. You're going to look at the resettlement of the local refugee resettlement companies and the asylees. You're going to look at the repatriates, those that left and came back. You're going to look at the new settlements of people that have migrated for business, and they've got business lottery visas. And you'll say, this city that I once loved and knew, I took ownership and shaped, and now the culture is one that I can no longer relate to. And so we're saying that cultural immersion, you think when you travel that you learn more about other people, but the truth is after you travel, you realize you learn so much more about yourself, because only once you're outside of what is normal, what is outside of your own everyday life, do you truly fully see yourself. You learn about yourself. And so I invite you, whether you're in Baltimore or D.C., decide to see yourself better. And maybe it's not as so deep as that. Maybe you just really want to let your hair down at least once, because COVID put you inside and, you've been there for how many years now? 3 years. That went fast. You've been indoors for 3 years now. Come back outside, because the world wants you. We miss you out here. And at the end of the day, how many times are we going to go to Vegas? How many times are we going to go to the Bahamas? Go somewhere where your dollar, you can feel it, right? I tell people all the time, you complain in the hood of hood in Baltimore that I'm broke, that I'm poor. Save your money, because for once in your life, you will realize that I am not poor. Because even if you've only got $10, if you save that $10 and find your way in Tanzania this summer or next summer, you will feel rich. The access to opportunities that you will have and experience the richness, the cultural richness of experience that you'll be able to afford will be life-changing. The serendipity.
And hold that thought right there, Kim. We got to stop and check the traffic and weather. When we come back, I want you to explain how people will feel after making that journey with you, these international tours. 16 after the top of the hour, folks. As I mentioned, we've got to check the traffic and weather in our different cities. We'll be back in 4 minutes with Kim Poole right here in Baltimore on 1010 WOLB and also in the DMV on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And good morning once again, family. 22 minutes after the top of the hour with Baltimore actress Kim Poole. Kim has a lot of projects on the table right now. She's currently at the UN in New York, and she's going to do the Freedom Rides at the Summer Learning Institute at stateside, and also she's going to take it to Africa, especially to Tanzania. Kim, can you tell the folks how they'll feel, how their outlook, their attitude on life will change after that first trip to the continent? Can you put that in words for us?
I think it really depends on where you're standing. If you're the kind of person that has always understood your connection to Africa on some level, then for you, this will be affirmation. It'll be, I told you so. Because we live in an environment that has given us the falsehood that we don't need Africa, that we are sustainable. And make no mistake about it, Black people in this country are the product of the strongest people on the face of this earth. We went through the Ma'afa, the transatlantic enslavement trade. East Africa teaches us that we went through the enslavement on even the East Coast out of Bagamoyo, but we still survived. We're the rhythm people. In the beginning with heart drum, with this vibration, we gave rhythm to the world. On this beat, we sing life. We are the rhythm people. And without our language, without an understanding of even our own name, we still came out Black on the other end. We still came out us. We survived, and we made it look good. We made surviving taste good. I think about my grandmother and how they took nothing and made the best cuisine this country has. We are what America is. When we go abroad and we go to Africa, we realize we see hip-hop culture, R&B and blues. We see our culinary traditions. And when they say, what is America, they co-opt it. I look at the embassies over there and what books they have on their table when you walk into the room. Those small little cultural appropriations that they have masked over the entire America that really is just us, that we don't know about because we don't go. And so I think as a Black person that has always kind of understood your connection to Africa, when you go for the first time, it's the affirmation, it's the confirmation. It's like, I told you, because y'all didn't tell me. Something inside me, that heartbeat inside me that always told me I was connected, told me. And for those that just simply wanted a vacation in a new spot, for those that just simply wanted to build their portfolios, they were tired of the Vegas, Las Vegas. For those that believe the hype about the Eiffel Tower and they went over to that dirty Paris and kicked trash to that subway, they go into Africa, they're going to say, wow, my life has been changed because how did I not know that this was the top destination for tourism around the world? How did I not know that I had to go to the Serengeti and see this migration, the largest migration of animals in the world for myself? I've forever been transformed when I walk to the top of Kilimanjaro Mountain. I mean, it's just life-changing.
Right. And Kim, if you can do us a favor, can you get closer to that phone? Because it seems like we're getting an echo chamber and the audio is sort of deteriorating as we speak. Because if you can get real close to that phone, we'll appreciate it. 26 minutes after the top of the hour, we got some folks who want to talk to you already. 800-450-7876. Mark's calling from Baltimore. Mark, you're on with Kim Poole.
Yes, sir. Good morning, Mr. Nelson. Good morning, Kim. Very good presentation about Tanzania. It sounds very good about Kilimanjaro. Always had a look at a picture of it, very nice. But my question is, are you also going to be expanding opportunity to visit other African nations? They may have some natural beauty. They may have some culinary cooking of their own. Each country has a different experience. Have you thought about that? And if so, what are the possibilities for that in the near future?
Absolutely. Thanks for listening in, Mark. I appreciate you. So I'll say that our organization works in 8 countries all year long, and 6 of them are on the African continent. And so Tanzania is just one of those locations. And so if you're interested in going to another country in East Africa, you can do that this October for the Jawanzaa East Africa Investment Tour, where we'll be going not only into Tanzania, but Kenya and Rwanda. If you're interested for the Summer Learning Institute and you can't make it this summer, no problem. You can come with us next year to Uganda, and you can learn all about what they call the Pearl of Africa and East Africa as well. And remember that we have West Coast experiences as well. But for us, we go to Ghana, but Ghana is like home for us. It's where we cut our teeth. It's one of the first regions where we work there. You'll get a chance to meet some of that family at the State of the Black World Mark in Baltimore. I hope you'll join us. But for us, the reason Ghana is like home is because now we're beyond tourism. I'm even beyond performing. Ghana was the first region. I'm a traditional artist. I sing too. And that was the first region that brought me in, that flew me into the country, put me in the nicest hotels, on the largest platforms they had, and, in front of audience, stadiums full of people to sing and perform my music. So when we go to Ghana, we can take you into that industry behind the scenes. Many things that we do in Ghana with our tours there, not even the tourists can do, not even the locals can do, because you have to be invited. For example, this December, I've been invited to the presidential ball. I was invited last December, and I was unable to make it. But this December, we've again been invited by the Musicians Union of Ghana. And you can't just go and buy a ticket to the presidential ball. It doesn't matter if you're from Ghana or from Baltimore. You have to be invited. And so these are the type of unique opportunities that we're able to curate when we take you to Ghana. So we don't just haphazardly do that, because now the market is flooded, Mark. You may or may not know it, but over 7,000 African Americans live in Ghana now. So when we show up in Ghana, we make sure that we're giving you something that only we can curate for you that's truly going to be life-changing. And then in the Gambia, same thing. We'll be in the Gambia this September. And so in the Gambia, a lot of people, they read the Roots, Alex Haley's Roots, and he said that he actually, from Dru Hill, he mapped his lineage into the Gambia. We work in the Gambia. When we're in the Gambia, we work with the office of the president. When Adama Barrow first entered office, he wanted new perspectives on developing the nation. And he chose us. He gave us an opportunity to think about what art as a tool for social transformation could look like in his small country. And they're doing big things in agriculture, adding the agri with the culture back into agriculture. They're working in women's empowerment. And the possibilities are endless. And we have excursions this September in the Gambia, and you're welcome to join us, especially if you're a woman. If you're a global African woman, if you're here in Baltimore, come with us this September. You especially are going to have an incredible opportunity to learn. And then, what can I say? Our original African country was Liberia, right? We stopped in Sierra Leone, but we kept it moving when we went to Freetown. And we settled in Liberia. And we've got lots of political trauma and turmoil from Liberia, because we took our baggage from enslavement back to Liberia, and we had it on the locals. But we're made of, over the years, we've made amends. And the diaspora of recent, we're a part of that healing process. They've had their bicentennial of our founding of that region. And so, we work with the Ministry of Tourism and Culture. My Louise Sewa, she's the emeritus, and she was there serving as the Minister of Tourism and Culture under Eileen Joseph, how do you say her name? Sirleaf Johnson. And so she is still working with us today. She's actually the reason that we work at the United Nations here in New York. She's the one that walked us into that opportunity, Louise Sewa. in Liberia, and we still work in Liberia there today. We have library initiatives as a part of the 6th Region Diaspora Caucus. Shout out to Dr. David Horn. We're in partnership with them, helping to build the first Pan-African library and first library that's for the public, period, in Liberia. And so Black people did that. And so we're working on it now. She's been collecting the books for that collection for almost 3 years now, since the pandemic started, and you should see the collection. And so if you're interested in going to Liberia, that's also an opportunity. I mean, yes, we work in other countries. We have an army of teaching artists everywhere that we do our artisan conference. Like this year, we'll be in Zimbabwe in our artisan conference, but we only go where we're invited. And so in Zimbabwe, the National Council of Arts, they invited us because they attended the conference in Kenya last year, and they said, us next. Please come here because we see opportunities for partnership, and we saw them too. So we will be there in Zimbabwe this November, always the first weekend of November for 6 to 7 days. And so that's an opportunity to go to another region. And we work in even more regions, but we only go and do tours in places where we're doing the work all year long. The reception is different. Make no mistake about it. Even the Black y'all, I'm Black and Black, whoever you are, the Blackest, most Pan-African, person or individual living in America, when you go to Africa, first and foremost, they see you as a dollar sign because you have dollars in your pocket. And so it's really nice if you could cut through the minutia of being seen as a dollar sign because you're working with an entity where they know you as a person already. So the people that you meet, they've been hand-selected, and they're real people, not just tourists seeing you as something that can be exploited for profit. It doesn't mean we're not there for exchange and barter, because we are. It doesn't mean we don't have dollars that we want to spend. It's just a different reception when you're working with people that are working with the people, from grassroots to grass tops on a regular basis. So they know us as people, and they give that same reception, and you really do feel like you're a brother or a sister because we've done the work and we've built a family, this international family across the continent. So thank you for your
And hold that thought right there,
question.
Kim, because we got to take another quick break here. We got to take our first look at the news, traffic, and weather in our different city. And Charles in Baltimore has got a question for you as well. Folks, you want to join this conversation with Kim Poole? She's an activist out of Baltimore City. Reach out to us at 800-450-7876. We'll take a quick break, but stay with us and get some substance for your soul right here on 1010 WOLB in Baltimore. Also in the DMV, we're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450. WOL, where information is power. And good morning once again, family. 20 minutes after the top of the hour with our guest activist, Kim Poole. Kim's got a lot of irons in the fire. She's telling us about some of them right now. If you'd like to speak to her, though, reach out to us at 800-450-7876. Before we go back to Kim, let me remind you, coming up later this morning, you're going to hear from Professor Manu Ampin. Now, Professor Ampin is the one who, I keep saying this, the one who actually figured out that the Willie Lynch letter was a fraud. I know some people are still quoting it like it's gospel, but that's not what he's here to talk about this morning. He's going to explain why we have 365 days and 12 months in a year. He says our ancestors created those metrics. He'll explain why. But before we hear from Professor Ampim, we're going to speak with a journalist, investigative journalist, Jeff Gallup. There's a string of suspicious killings in Central Florida. That's where he's located. So he's going to give us an update on some of those killings. Also later this week, you're going to hear from veteran journalist Barbara Reynolds, clinical and industrial psychologist Dr. Edwin Nichols, chematologist Tony Brado will be here, and also poet Liana Mataka is going to join us as well. So if you're in Baltimore, make sure your radio's locked in on 1010 WOLB. If you're in the DMV, you're on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL. Kim, we got some folks who want to speak with you, so let's go to line 2. Charles is in Baltimore. Charles, you're on with Kim Poole.
Yes. How you doing, Kim?
Good morning, Charles.
All right. I have spoken to many Africans from all over Africa, and they, know very little American and have very little American influence. So I asked, what stories, are there in your village or have been told in your village about folks that have been stolen or sold into slavery? And each time I'm told that that happened, in Europe. It was a European experience, not an American experience. And see, they really don't understand anything about the transatlantic slave trade. They only understand about Leopold and what happened with them being sent to Europe. So I'm wondering, if I go and travel to all these villages in Africa, and I ask the same question again, why is it nobody knows anything about the transatlantic slave trade or where we've been stolen?
All right. Thanks, Charles. And Kim, please tell Charles, because he hasn't been to Africa. He's got this European fixture of villages. Charles, take a look at some of the pictures of Cape Town or Joburg or Lagos, or just every African city. The metropolitan areas look just like the ones here. In fact, in Joburg, Johannesburg, almost identical. The only difference is the road signs are in blue and white, where ours is in green and white. So I want you to get in this mind that you're going to some villages with huts. But Kim, I'll let you answer the question for him.
Absolutely. Carl, you're right on it. I mean, you've got some of the biggest cities, like in Lagos, the traffic from Lagos into Victoria Island is like a standstill, but the infrastructure is there. A village, maybe you meant village in a communal sense, right? And not just like huts and sticks. So I'll give you the benefit of the doubt, Charles. But what I'll say in response to your question is that you have to remember that while we were being put through the transatlantic enslavement trade, colonization was happening on the continent. And so it's one thing when you can always over-romanticize, if I had only stayed home, things would be better. But the truth is that home was not better because the colonizers were in the house. It's one thing when you can say, if I had only spoken my own language, I would be better. Our people would have a stronger sense of self. It's another thing when somebody comes into your own house and tells you your language isn't good enough, that what you speak is inferior to what we speak. So we're going to make sure that you don't speak your own language. Your religion is not good enough. And so whatever you're practicing is not effective. You're going to talk to our God. You're going to do things our way with our culture. And now you have to teach your own children, a man that has to go, that he is not good enough. His culture is not good enough. A mother that carried a child in her womb has to tell her child that she is not good enough because she's not from Europe and one of the colonizing, entities. And so the question is, what does that do to the psychology of the people in that region? Well, it teaches them an inherent inferiority complex, even one that in some cases is worse than what we experience in the diaspora, because we can always imagine what if the Ma'afa didn't happen, or there is no place like home, if I could just get back, if I could just get connected. So sometimes you'll find that we value African culture in some regions, especially the Francophone regions. Oh, j'ai franc, if I could just be French, then I'll be assimilated. And as opposed to the English colonized regions where they say, listen, you'll never be one of us. Just know. So that kind of gives you this, the bottom class, the underclass. But the underclass, when collective and when united, they can amass their own power. So they, in some regions, did that, and it came with an identity. And that's why Ghana was the first region emancipated from colonial rule. That underclass got power and got connected. And so, but in the French regions, they said, listen, if you are French, if you learn to speak the language as good as we do, if you learn everything about our culture and our food, eventually you can be one of us. They use assimilation as their methodology for colonization. So in those Francophone nations, they have some of the most deep-seated self-hate that you've ever seen. And the education system, when we talk about how to undo that, you said they don't know about us. Sometimes they don't know about themselves. I have people in West Africa that have no idea about what's happening in East Africa. And sometimes even in their own school system, in their own district, they don't know the African name for for example, Victoria Falls. There's an African name for Victoria Falls. And so I want you to know that there are changes being made, though. The last 20 years is like going to take us, or I'll say the next 20 years is going to take us more than the last 100 years in terms of connection. The world is just closer together. And I can even say the Teaching Artists Institute, we're 8 years old now. And I can tell you that some of my predecessors and elders, what they've been doing for 20 years, some people say, I've been going to Egypt for 60 years. I've been going to Ghana for 50 years. What we've been able to do in the last 8 years has been like what has happened over the past 20 years, because the world is moving faster. Technology has afforded us that opportunity, but also this generation is ready. It's like a cultural renaissance. When we said that we were working with Nandi County, the first thing they said is that we want to learn about your history. They're coming with us, their Minister of Tourism and Culture, on the Freedom Rides Tour this June 11th through the 17th, and bringing a small delegation. Right now, we have folks out of Ethiopia that are coming with us on the Freedom Ride Tour. We just wrote the invitation letters for the Teacher Artist Institute in the Gambia, coming with us on the Freedom Ride Tour. Africans born in Africa that have never lived in the United States that said they want to learn about Black people culture, because they said, if we're going to be working with you, we want to know your history. Can you imagine? The world is changing, Charles. Come up with us. You should go to the continent.
All right, 12 away from the top. I got some more people want to talk to you, Kim. Let's go to Buffalo. Bob's waiting for us. He's on line 3. Bob, you're on with Kim Poole.
Yeah, Sista's joy is infectious. Her passion is just overwhelming. A couple of questions. One, the library that you're speaking about in Liberia, is there a way that we can contribute and add books or send books to that library? And the second one is... Okay. The second one is in terms of reparations. If you can give us your opinion on how actions that we and you and they can take in terms of reparations. But back to the library, how can we send books to you so you can get them there, or can we send books directly?
Well, I'll tell you what. I appreciate you even being willing to send, and what you asked were really one and the same question, because that Pan-African Library in Liberia, it's a part of the reparations that we give to ourselves, the restorative repairing that we have to do as global Africans for global African people, for us, by us. And so please send your books. We can make sure, inbox us, facebook.com/teaching artist, one word, no S. Facebook.com/teaching artist, one word, 443-739-0941. I'll say that again, 443-739-0941. Listen, no elitism here. I'm accessible. That's the phone by the bed. Please call me. We want to get this education out there. And if you've got some books that our people need to have in their hands, listen, Liberia has an 80% illiteracy rate. We have to do this work. Where are we coming home to if it's 80% illiteracy? We got to make sure, Liberia, that's our region that we settled. We got to go save our cousins, and it starts with education. And when it comes to reparations that we do for ourselves and the ones that we hold this system that benefited from our free labor on this stolen land, we're talking about the bill, H.R. 40. We're talking about Dr. Ron Daniels and the work that they're doing with Sheila Jackson down in Texas. We're talking about the State of the Black World Conference, that all of the African leadership that are vested internationally in reparations, they're coming in town. Again, the president of Ghana, the president of Barbados, Mia Motley, the vice president of Colombia, they will be there in my city of Baltimore. So please come down from Buffalo. If you want an update on where reparations are and where they need to be and how you can get involved, this is the opportunity for you to do it in real time. It's not this ever elusive theory now. It's a practice. It's a policy. And it's something that will happen if you're with us. So please be a part of the team. Inbox us on Facebook.com/teaching artist, or just shoot me a text message, and I'll make sure. Now, text first, because, the bill collectors are calling, too. So you send me a text message, and I make sure that it's you, okay?
Thanks, Kim. 9 away from the top. And thanks, Bob, from Buffalo. Let's go to line 4. Sandra's joining us. She's in Baltimore. Sandra, you're on with Kim Poole. Sandra, there on line 4?
I'm here. How are you? Kim, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Good morning.
Good morning, Kim. Let me tell you, what a dynamic woman. I listen to you. Now, I am Jamaican, but I tell you, if People don't get up. So many people here in Baltimore, they don't get up. They've never left the boundaries of Baltimore. How can you rule the world if you don't know it? They don't. It is mind-blowing. You've got to make that effort to get out there. Let me tell you, I had a travel agency. When my son was 9 years old, he had traveled 16 countries. I sent him to boarding school in Jamaica. Let me tell you something. The boy came back because at Catholic school here, they said he was dyslexic. What? I picked him up and sent him to my alma mater. He came back speaking Spanish, French, Jamaican, and the best. And he is a dynamic person. He found his space. It is so mind-blowing when I listen to all these stories about these kids in school. I don't have a child in school anymore. He has just progressed because he found himself. He found the leader in himself. He knew more than people who were just sitting there. And this is what I think, that our young kids in Baltimore, they need that exposure. They need to know where they're coming from. I can't imagine that they want these kids to go to school and they don't teach them their history.
Right. Sandra, hold that thought right there, because we're going to take a short break. And it's interesting that you mentioned the children and the youngsters in Baltimore City, because they'll be the ones who would really benefit from traveling. But we're going to take a short break so we can check the traffic and weather in both of our cities. We'll come back in 6 away from the top there. We're back in 4 minutes, though. Sandra, I'll let you finish your comment or your question for Kim right here in Baltimore in 4 minutes, and also in the DMV on FM 95.9 and AM 1450 WOL, where information is power.
The Carl Nelson Show.
And good morning again, family. A minute after the top of the hour with the Baltimore activist, Kim Poole. You like to speak to Kim? Oh, we just about up. So, Sandra, I'm going to let you finish your thought, because we've got Jeff Gallup. Our next guest is on deck. We'll get to Jeff in a moment. But, Sandra, I'll let you finish your comment or your question for Kim.
Yes, I was actually saying that it is so sad that these kids here in Baltimore, in the schools, they don't want to teach them their native history. And even though Kim is from Tanzania and I'm Jamaican, we come from the same blood. We're black people. We have got to learn where our strength comes from, because believe me, we're a very strong people. But they take away the essence of who we are when they don't even try to teach us our history. There's so many people that don't even realize we came up over on slave ships. They dropped the Jamaicans off down there because I guess you would have killed the slave masters. But but we're strong people. We are human beings that don't need or deserve to be denied. And it is amazing that here we are years later, that we have got to be fighting for the air that we breathe. And Kim, I congratulate you for voicing your opinion. I have been to Africa, I've been to Nigeria. But that said, to just look at the soil, touch the beach, and realize that this is where our ancestors came from. This is where my strength came from. It is amazing.
Right. And Sandra, we're going to cut you because we're running late. But I thank you for your comment, and you're absolutely right. We're all one. You know, just the same. We came on the same ship. Some just dropped off at different spots before the others. But thank you for sharing that. And thank you for also talking about the children in Baltimore too, Sandra, because you're right. I think they would benefit a great deal from these travels.
Oh, I would love to be a part of any progress that you're doing. I have the time. Anything that you're doing that I can help.
All right. Thank you, Sandra.
Okay.
We got to keep moving. Kim, we got some folks who call in, want to know the date of the conference for reparations, and they want your contact information.
Oh, yes, I do.
No problem. I just want to say thank you, Miss Sandra. I know you said your kids are no longer in school, but they are in school. And if you would consider donating to have one of those young people take one of these voyages for us, we have to educate ourselves now. We can't just depend on the school system. So please, Miss Sandra, you a nanny of the Maroons right here in Baltimore with us. And so please consider donating to sponsor one of the young people to come with us, even if it's not to Africa. We have history right here. Every August, we go into the Eastern Shore with the Underground Railroad excursion, and we talk about Harriet Tubman. We take history off the page. So whether it's at Africa or our own story, the most important story right here on these shores, please let us know how you can get involved. But my contact information, Carl, is facebook.com/teaching artist. Please like us on Facebook. Our Facebook sucks. Our social media is in the ice age because for me it's like homework. Please like us on facebook.com/teaching artist or text me 443-739-0941. Let's get us out to the State of the Black World Conference. It's going to be in Baltimore at the Convention Center, April 19th through the 23rd. And you're going to meet some of these leaders around the world because guess what? Africa is coming to you. It's not like you just need to get on a plane and go to Africa, but now you have Africa and the Caribbean. Mia Motley is from Barbados. You know, we've got Colombia in South America. They're coming to you. They understand our connection as global African people. And when they come to your city, you have no choice. Only $200 to meet people that have spent thousands to come and have conversations with you. Make sure you're at that convention center in Baltimore this April.
All right. Thanks, Kim. And thank you for sharing all your information with us.